Well, it is a great day in motorsport. We get Monaco and we get the Indianapolis 500 back to back in one day. The Indianapolis 500 was an amazing race, but today we are talking about Monaco.
We are. And you forgot the Coca-Cola 600 at 6
Ah,
o'clock
yes,
Eastern.
NASCAR. Yes, yes. Yeah.
So that
So I
starts.
gotta say, that was that was different.
I think I
but
was I was gonna say, have we ever started one of these recordings and not said that was a crazy race?
Yeah, honestly, we have been kind of spoiled this year. Every race except maybe
Oh
like
man.
Miami has been like actually wild. So, and this is no exception.
Yeah, this has been nuts. It's been
So,
crazy.
I who had Sergio Perez for the win in Monaco? Because I certainly didn't.
Well, I know that he wanted to win. I know he did a lot of interviews over the last week saying, if I'm in front, they're going, I'm going to win. I'm not, because
Yeah.
he got a lot of grief after, handing over the win in Barcelona. But he, and, there's arguments. He didn't really hand it over. There were tire strategies that played into it and things like that. But
Yeah.
it just didn't work out for him. And Max kind of got lucky under the circumstances when it came to pit stops and things. So, but
Yeah.
he definitely was wanting a win. I don't know who could have called it, but you know what? After qualifying, it was certainly a possibility.
That's true. Perez did look a lot more comfortable in the car than Max
He
did
did.
all throughout the weekend. I mean, I actually was able to catch all of the practice sessions and qualifying,
Yes.
and Max just was always slower than Perez, even in qualifying. He
Yeah,
just
he
never
was.
seemed to really like the car.
His car was, it's so weird. His car was super twitchy, and the back end was
Yeah.
almost looked like Lewis. Both of those guys were sliding the back end around everywhere. And I mean, everybody did that a little bit in practice and qualifying, but those guys were consistently just manhandling their cars through corners. But Leclerc was unbelievably good.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was doing great. And then,
Yeah, we can't get too far in without addressing the elephant in the room.
right.
He broke his curse. So up until this point, he has never seen the checkered flag in Monaco in any series ever, which is his home
No,
race.
going back to 28, his first race there was his home race for him was 2018.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we didn't race there, but this was his in 2020. This was his fourth attempt. So,
Well, I'm pretty sure it was also in considering other series as well, not just F1.
yeah. Oh no, it was absolutely, yeah,
Yeah.
the other series as well. But he never finished, and
Yeah.
I thought, this is going to be interesting. If he doesn't finish, then I'm going to call it an official Andretti style curse. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, that's it.
Yeah.
That's not good. But yeah, there's a lot of things went on in this race.
Absolutely. Yesterday in qualifying, he was so strong. Right
Yes,
before the red flag, right at the end from Perez crashing and then Carlos spinning, he put in a monster lap earlier in the
yes.
session to
Oh
go
yeah,
on provisional pole, and then he was pulling out such an incredible lap right then when the red flag came out that he
yeah.
was easily going to beat that. His standing lap, and so he was just on fire. The pressure was on, and he was handling it like an absolute champ. And then with the rain at the start of the race, everything just kind of got away from him, but mostly due to strategy, honestly.
Yes, yeah, yeah. He qualified extremely well, and
Yeah.
this track. You know, there's so much to talk about here, but
Oh, yeah, I know.
but the bottom line is these cars are heavy and they're just big cars.
Yep.
And this is a small track. This track was
Yep.
not designed. You would never design a track like this for cars like
No.
that. But yet
No.
I think there's only like 4 times since the beginning of Formula One they have not raced there. And I don't know what the
Yeah.
circumstances were for those four, but
Yeah.
and that's something we'll touch on toward the end about the future of Monaco in Formula One.
Yeah, yeah.
But anyway, but you could see that several of the drivers brushed, the bare metal, exposures there with the
Mhm.
safer barriers with their
Mhm.
tires. Obviously, some hit them. but these cars were a handful, and there's absolutely almost no room for error. There's a few runoff areas that
Yeah.
quite a few people took advantage of,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
after the tunnel into the casino and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But there's other things where other areas where there's one or two areas where there's runoffs at the end of a, what you might call a straight.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, very judiciously.
Yes.
Air quotes. But
Yeah.
but I can't believe, this was just a great day. And you know why it was a great day when I turned on the TV for the pre-race show?
Yeah.
Right at the end, what started happening? Toward
Oh,
the
it
end of the
started
it
raining.
started raining. And then it really started
And then
raining.
it really started. So we do need to touch on that. I don't want to harp on about it necessarily
Yeah.
for an extended period, but what are your initial thoughts about how they handled the kind of start and with the whole rain, and are they starting, are they not starting, and all that stuff? Because I got opinions, but I'm curious what you think first.
Well, I think it was clear from Martin, is it
Brundle.
Martin Brundle, that the people that have been around Formula One for a while were saying, "Oh, come on, guys, let's get on with it,"
Yeah.
and I kind of thought the same thing. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, I don't mind waiting for a few minutes to make sure that there's no flooded areas. We don't want to ruin the race by sending the guys out in a deluge, but they exercised an overabundance of caution in this case
Yeah.
and delayed the race unnecessarily.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they blew it. I think that this is an issue they're going to review and realize
Yes,
that
they should.
yeah, I mean, this was starting to look like,
Yeah, to me, it's like this is the pinnacle of motorsport, and if you want that, like to me, it's like football. No matter what the weather is, you play the game of football. Like if it's snowing, if there's ice, if it's an absolute torrential downpour and it's mud on the field, you get together and you're like, "All right, boys, let's play us some football."
yeah,
And to me, F1 should be the same way. It's like I don't really care what the conditions are.
right,
I
right.
mean, to an extent, there is a caveat of there becomes a time where maybe you should, for safety concerns. And I think where we saw that was actually Spa last year, even though there's some interesting parallels that happened with what happened today. But Spa is, in my opinion, a significantly more dangerous track than Monaco is. And so I understand the overabundance of caution there, though I still think that was still kind of crazy.
Significantly more dangerous. Well, yeah, we'd have to qualify that statement as far as danger. Danger can be a straight line at 500 miles an hour, but
I'm just saying you have Eau Rouge in Spa, which is
yeah,
one of the most dangerous sections of track in the world.
potentially.
Um,
I mean, there's nothing
yeah,
inherently
potentially.
dangerous about it
Correct.
unless there happens to be a car that's sideways at the top of a
Right.
line curve.
Right. Which
Then,
does happen a lot in fairness,
well,
but
it
there
happens.
there's nothing like that in Monaco. It's slow speeds, it's everything's pretty self-contained. I mean, it's like to me I was watching this going, yeah, it's a downpour, but like let's just go. We've got the full wets that are actually called extreme wets for a
Yeah.
reason. Let's just get on with it.
Well, I think, like I said, I think it would have been fine to send them out for a wait the 9 minutes like they were going to originally, and then send
Yeah.
them out for a scouting lap, and and see what the drivers think. But I think, honestly, I think not necessarily the teams, because they may have a different motivation, but I think the drivers themselves should have a significant voice in whether or
Oh,
not
I agree.
they're ready to race, because if it's too wet, they almost all agree that it's too wet. There'll be some of the young bucks that will go, "No, it ain't. We can race."
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the people that have been around a little bit, they're going to go, "No, this is crazy. We shouldn't be out here." And then at that
Yeah.
point, the FIA can go, "Okay, we were right. We should bring it in until this dies down a little bit." And I've seen them do
Yeah.
that. In this case,
Yeah.
the drivers were going, "This ain't that bad. Let's go, guys."
Yeah.
And the FIA was, "No, no, no. It is
Yeah.
raining. It's a little bit too wet. We do not want to see an accident." And
Yeah.
and it was like,
Yeah.
come on. They were a little too close to France today, I think, but
Yeah. Well,
they
Monaco
were
was in France,
sorry.
literally, but yeah, it's its
Just
own
having
thing.
fun.
Yeah, yeah.
We're just joking around, but
Yeah, yeah, but no, I think that's a perfectly valid point. I think personally, I mean, you don't want too many things going to the drivers for a vote because then things could get out of hand and they don't have the perspective of the broader picture necessarily. But in something like this, I completely agree with you. I think there should just be a quick check from the FIA with each of the drivers, and I think
yeah,
like a not a simple majority, but like an overwhelming majority. If like 2/3 of the drivers are good with it,
right.
then go.
If
You know?
2/3 say no, and yeah, and like you said, the
Yeah,
FIA gets the final. I didn't say they should have the ultimate vote, but they should have a significant
yeah.
sway because they're the ones that are putting their lives out there in their line and
Right.
their seasons and everything else. So and they're the experts, not some guy
That's
sitting in a
exactly
control tower, you know.
exactly, that's what I was gonna say. They're the guys who know what a car can do in those conditions. Like, you'd
Yes.
think they would at least ask.
Right.
Like,
Sipping their
I don't know.
lattes going, I think it's too wet. So
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't necessarily wanna harp on too much about the procedure, but like you said, I just hope that they review it and try to come up with something that's a little bit more streamlined and
mhm.
understandable moving forward, but I don't know, we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. They should place a higher priority on getting things underway than they do.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah,
have the
yeah.
extreme wets, like you said. They have the inters, and
Yeah.
if the guys want to race, let them race.
Yeah, yeah. So what to you was like the biggest takeaway event kind of thing that you saw today?
Honestly, I the thought I had to myself, and I can't remember if I texted this to you or not on Friday, but I thought, okay, Ferrari has the stronger cars clearly, and
Mhm.
and Perez was clearly faster than Max. Max deserved to be fourth
Yeah.
in this race. But you still, you have and we'll talk about uh, the other guys, including Mercedes, a little bit later. But my
Yeah.
thought was, as long as Red Bull doesn't pull a Red Bull and outthink Ferrari in the pits, Leclerc or Sainz has a really good chance, probably Leclerc, of winning this race.
Yeah.
But I knew that Red Bull was going, and I knew if it rained, it was over for Ferrari. If it
Yeah.
rains, Red Bull is going to win this race because they're going to find a way to Red Bull their way through it. And
Mhm.
that's exactly what happened.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh my
That's
goodness.
what struck me, like, honestly, I was sitting there watching it going, "Red Bull does it again." They spent all of
Yes.
last year out strategying, if that's even a word, Mercedes throughout the whole year.
Out strategizing.
Out strategizing, sure. Yeah, they spent the whole year doing that last year. I mean,
Hmm.
occasionally Mercedes got the better of them, but usually when Mercedes won, it was just raw pace. It wasn't because of strategy.
Yeah, or
And
dumb luck.
and or dumb luck. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And Red Bull just has a long I personally think they're the best strategists in the field and it's not close.
I think you can make a good argument for that at this point in time.
Yeah.
And then, but I would also say that Ferrari is not nearly on the level when it comes to strategy of Mercedes. So
True.
because and I can hear them out thinking themselves, and that where
Yeah.
Leclerc lost the race, and this is horrible to listen to.
Yeah.
They said box this lap, box, and he's coming up to the pit lane,
Yeah.
and then he enters the pit lane. They're going, no, go around, and he
Yeah.
just screams. He goes, "I'm in the pit lane,"
Yeah.
or whatever he said. But he
Yeah.
was mad
Yeah.
because, and they,
I
because,
personally think he had already lost the race by then. Not that
hmm,
it matters a whole lot, but Perez was already ahead of him on the road, and like
yeah,
at that point in time, and so and then Carlos was ahead of him, and so Carlos I think was exactly spot on. He was like, "No, we're not doing your strategy. We're doing my strategy,"
yeah.
and
Well,
he actually he
that's
would have
the next
been
thing we need to talk about. That
yeah,
is definitely the
but
next little rubric here. But
but before we I'll actually will stop myself then. Before we get onto that, I did want to mention something really fast. You remember how talking about Ferrari strategy in general?
yeah,
Remember how like last year or the year before I've mentioned how Ferrari is a clown show and you took offense to that?
yes.
This is what I mean. They're not a clown
Yeah.
show in sense of design, in sense of team structure, like how they operate, but in terms of strategy, they're a clown show, and they make these kinds of mistakes all the time.
Well, I don't again, I still don't like that term. To me, it's really a put down, but
Eh,
they're simply a smaller team. They're really small, and they
true.
put their limited budget and their efforts into where it needed to be. They obviously built probably the fastest car on the grid, but they don't have the jillions of people and dollars because they sell very
Yeah,
exotic
yeah, yeah,
sports cars to a limited number of people instead of fizzy sugar drinks with caffeine in
yeah.
them.
Right.
So that apparently everybody likes to drink these days.
Yeah.
I've never had a Red Bull. I gotta be honest.
I've had a few, and anytime I actually want an energy drink, which is rare, but
Yeah,
I always try to go with Red Bull just because I like what they do in motorsports. But that
yeah,
aside,
yeah,
I will backpedal very, very slightly and say that Ferrari is not always a clown show. They just frequently, multiple times a year, do something really stupid when it comes to strategy, and we saw that today.
yeah.
That's what I
They will
mean.
make mistakes, but they're not. They are. You can say they might have had a clown show moment, but they're not a
Okay.
clown show as a team. I mean, that's why they were up until
I don't mean as a
Barcelona.
team.
Oh, okay.
I mean in terms of strategy.
Oh,
Purely in
okay.
terms of strategy.
Oh, okay.
Clearly, their
Well,
engineering department is incredible,
now that you qualify it,
but
then I would say when it comes to strategy, they're third tier on the grid at best.
yeah, yeah.
That's what I would say. I would
Okay,
say that
okay.
Red Bull is far above.
Yes.
Red Bull is the top. Mercedes is close, but not at the top.
Yeah.
And then who knows who's third? Really, I'd have to think about that for a bit.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
Ferrari should
maybe
be.
McLaren.
Yeah, Ferrari should be on par with at least Mercedes, but
Yeah.
honestly, they just don't have the personnel. And I think
Yeah.
what they did today is this is a perfect example of a smaller team that have really good cars that shoot themselves in the foot. And that is that they
Yeah.
probably had on paper, like most teams, they had, okay, here's what we do if.
Mhm.
And this
Mhm.
is an algorithm. It's a computer. I mean, you could write one of these, a little app for a smartphone that would tell you what to do. And you plug in the variables and
Yeah.
it tells you what to do. The
Yeah.
thing is, you got to listen to it
Yeah.
where everybody goes wrong. And I've seen like coaches do this, baseball coaches do this in the World Series. They'll
Mhm.
manage or managers. They manage one way throughout the season that gets them to the World Series. And then they overmanage in the series with everybody watching it and they screw up and they do
Yep.
stupid things
Yep.
and then their team who should have won doesn't win. I mean,
Mhm.
look at the history of the Dodgers in the World Series. You understand what I'm talking about.
I'm
But
just
they
gonna
just
smile and nod because I don't know.
they overmanage. So in this case, in the heat of the battle at Monaco with their two best cars, and with there was a lot of variables. Let's give them
Yes.
that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah.
It was going to be. Do we go from the now? Some people might wonder why were we on the full wets or the extreme wets? We were on them because if you start the race behind a safety car, the FIA now has a guideline that you have to be on full wets if you're going to
Yeah.
start a race behind a safety car. So they
Yeah.
had no choice in that. But the
Yeah.
choice was, do we go to inters or do we hang out here on the full wets until it's dry enough to go to slicks?
Yep.
That was the choice that was initially facing everybody, and it wasn't clear
Yeah.
what the right choice was in that situation.
So
And I
that's a
think
great segue back to Carlos.
yes, yes, I'll
What
let
was
you.
the point you were gonna bring up about him? Because I think he made a great
Well,
move in overriding his team.
go ahead and explain that, and then I was just going to give a general comment.
Okay, so yeah, so basically, Carlos he was slated to come in at around the same time Leclerc did to go to Inters, and then later on to go to Slicks.
Hmm.
But Carlos was like, "No, leave me out longer and go straight to Slicks." He wanted to skip a pit stop
Yes,
effectively,
yes,
and he literally they came on the radio that they broadcast. They broadcast two different times. It may have happened more than that, where he was like, "No." Leave me out for Slicks.
right, right.
And they were like, "Okay." And it seemed like they weren't really sure about it, but he ended up making the right call because he came out way better than Leclerc did, all things considered, and
Well,
kept
yes,
second.
and then but yet at the same time, Red Bull made 2 stops. They stopped for
They did.
inters and slicks and
They did.
still got in front of Leclerc.
Yeah.
which
Now, in
was
the post-race interview, Carlos said that on his out lap after he got onto the slicks,
yeah,
while Perez was in the pits, on his out lap, he was stuck behind a slower car and couldn't get past them and couldn't
yeah.
do the lap time he needed to get ahead of Perez. That's what he said. I don't recall seeing that during the race, but I also wasn't paying attention in fairness. So that assuming that that's what happened, that is probably what lost him the race, and he could have very easily been ahead of Perez and then won
Yeah.
if that hadn't happened.
Oh yeah,
So
that race could have ended with Carlos in first place very easily.
yes,
And you and I were kind of debating this. I was happy to see either Perez or him win. I'm
yeah,
in long-term season perspective, I'm a Red Bull guy, so I was hoping for
yeah.
Red Bull, but if Sainz had won, I would not have felt bad about it because
Oh yeah,
he would
yeah.
have got the points.
Yeah, to me, this season is just like kind of heaven on earth because the top four guys in the best two cars,
Yeah.
I are like four of my top five favorite drivers. Like I love them all; they're
Yeah.
great, and
Yeah.
especially Max and especially Leclerc. And to see them both going head to head is great. So I literally was watching the whole closing stage of the race, like whoever wins, I'm happy. Like this is just great
Right,
racing.
right, right. It can't, yeah, it's like you can't go wrong. You can only get
Yeah,
better, you know.
yeah, yeah.
You
So
know, I know, I agree. And I was
yeah,
glad to see no DNFs, although it was warm but not super hot.
there were
But I
two
was glad
DNFs.
to see, but my point was, okay, and this is the thing, we've kind of been ragging on science. We've been saying this guy has got to quit making mistakes. He's got to quit
Yeah.
wadding up cars. He's got
I
to do
think
better.
today he completely redeemed himself.
Well, yeah, I mean this weekend was tough, but the bottom line was in the worst course, really, that has the least amount of forgiveness for
Mhm.
mistakes. He didn't make any mistakes, and
Not a
including a wet
one.
track,
Yeah.
various wet, dry, he did it all. So,
Yeah.
and he easily could have won.
Absolutely. And when he even tried to pass Perez down the
Yes.
front straight in air quotes, he went offline into the wet and the
Yeah.
car almost went sideways, but he saved it and kept going and was fine. And it was
Yes.
like,
He saved it. Yeah.
yeah.
And what wasn't that in the tunnel? I mean, that was a
No, no, that was
dangerous.
across the start finish line.
Okay. Oh, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There was another guy that went sideways in the tunnel, I think. That was
Yeah.
Gasly or somebody, or
Yeah.
Sonoda or somebody. But yeah,
Joe maybe, I don't remember,
right,
but yeah.
right. But yes, that is true. That's where it was.
Yeah.
And yeah, he could have easily lost the car, but he was on it today. He was
Yeah,
on
yeah.
it and nothing. The only thing that was going to stop him was circumstances.
Yeah.
And but okay, so that's what that was the point I wanted to make about science. It's like, okay, he was on. He's
Yeah.
not one of these guys that we have to leave in the question mark category like Latifi or in my opinion Ricardo.
Yeah. Yeah.
They still have this big question mark over them, and I don't think either one of those guys are doing justice for their teams, meaning
Nope.
Ricardo and Latifi.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so that was interesting. But yeah, so hats off to him. He could have easily won, like I said, probably 3 times now. But and
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
what I want. But I want people to realize it wasn't like Perez just walked away with it.
No. Literally, I'm looking at the times right now. Carlos Sainz crossed the line 1.15 seconds behind Perez at the end of the
Yeah,
race.
yeah.
1.15 seconds, and he probably lifted because he wasn't going to get
And
by. He
that's at the
probably
end
lifted
of
right
a
before the line.
straight,
Yeah,
that's the of just flooring it. So
yeah,
yeah, and I'm sure he was
like
much closer before they went up the hill. So
yeah. So like
now what lap did we end on? Because this race had an unusual end, first time this season that we ended
yeah,
by time, not by lap. Because in Formula One, and a lot of people may not know this, um, now of course if there's a red flag, they don't count time. But otherwise, you have 2 hours to finish the race. And I think there is a maximum time, even including red flags. But
3 hours is the maximum
yeah,
time.
something like 3 hours. But you have two
Yeah.
hours of track time to finish a race, no matter what. So, and then they can potentially award less points based on the
Hmm.
percentage of the race that was completed. So I think the
Yeah.
race was supposed to go, if I remember, something like 74 laps or something like that. And
Yeah, something like that.
and
Yeah,
then
70 something.
and then it was yeah, it was either 74 or 77. Somehow I think it was
Yeah,
75.
yeah, yeah. One of those
And
two.
then but it was like if they do 57 or more, then that's 75% and they get
Yeah.
so I could do the math based on 57, I guess. But
Yeah, it's
but but
basically
but
quarterly increments for this year. It used to be if you go 75% of the race,
it didn't used to be that way either.
it used to be if you go 75% of the race distance, you get full points. If you
Yeah,
don't, you get half points regardless of how far you go.
yeah,
Whereas this year it's broken out by quarters. So if you go quarter of the race, you get quarter points, half the race, you get half points, three-fourths of the race, you get full points, I think.
right.
Or
Yes.
maybe I have that wrong. But
Something
something
like that.
something to that effect.
Whatever it is. But yeah, it
Yeah,
was
yeah.
so but in the end, I didn't even check points because I jumped over to the Indy 500. Did
I
you
have the points, yeah.
Okay, so let's go through the points. Where are we?
Yeah. So let me actually, while we're here, let me
Yeah,
quickly just go through the top 10. I'm just going to read them off.
sure.
Top 10 finishing order. Perez, Sainz, Verstappen, Leclerc, Russell, Norris,
Mhm.
Alonso, Hamilton, Bottas, Vettel.
Okay.
So Russell in fifth, keeping his run of top five finishers, which is crazy. I don't know how he does it, but we'll get to him in a minute. Current point standings: Max Verstappen still leads on 125 points. He is now 9 points ahead of Leclerc on 116, who is now only 6 points ahead of Perez on 110.
Okay.
Yeah, and then you have Russell on 84 with Carlos Sainz 1 point behind him on 83, and that's the top five.
Okay. And so how many laps in total did we do?
I don't know. It was
Oh,
60 something,
okay.
early 60s, I
But we
believe.
got
I don't
above
have her
yeah, we're
number.
clearly above 57. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It
okay.
was over 75%. Yeah. So it was full
Okay.
points.
All right.
Yeah.
So and Red Bull still leading the constructors championship.
Yeah. Constructors is Red Bull on 235. So they are 36 points up on Ferrari, who's on 199.
Okay.
So
And
36
driver
points is a lot, but it's not a whole lot. So you can easily make that up over the rest of the season for Ferrari.
So how far back is Lewis at this point, and where's Mercedes in the constructors? I mean, I assume,
Yeah.
and every race we go through, they get farther and farther behind.
So Lewis is sixth in the drivers' standings.
Okay,
He's 33 points behind Sainz, and Lewis Hamilton is on 50 points currently. So he's 33 points back on Carlos, and then that makes him 34 points back on Russell, his teammate. So
wow,
yeah,
34 points behind Russell,
yeah.
and how many points behind Max?
Oh, I'm bad at math. A lot. It's 50 versus 125. So I guess 75
Oh
points.
well, that's easy.
Yeah,
Wow, that's not
yeah,
good
yeah.
though. That's a long
No,
so
no. I think it's pretty safe to say that Lewis's chances of getting the constructors this year or the
or the
drivers title
drivers,
this
yeah.
year is just non-existent at this point.
And so, where's Mercedes total team constructor points?
Yeah, they are on 134. So they are very solidly in third. They're about 60
Right.
odd points behind Ferrari, and they're like uh 70 something points ahead of McLaren. McLaren's on 59 and Mercedes is on 134. So do the math. I don't know.
Yeah,
But
okay,
so
okay.
it's,
So, it
yeah,
was
they're very
closer,
ahead of
they
McLaren.
were closer with McLaren, like, going into Miami and after
Yeah.
Miami, but not now, yeah, so okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very,
So,
very interesting. So there and I think that's the story.
yep.
So after Miami and after Barcelona and after Monaco, you have Russell and Lewis, Russell finishing in front of Lewis, Lewis
Hmm.
finishing 8th or 7th, it was 8th, but whatever it happens to be, they are the 3rd place team, and you have
Hmm.
Norris always somewhere in the top 10, and you have Daniel Ricciardo playing marbles down at the bottom,
Yep.
so and that's what and this is the way this season I mean, and now we're easily 25% of the way, a little over 30% of the way through the season, and we have some consistency forming in the stats.
Yeah.
So,
I
and
just
it
checked really quickly. I just
yeah,
checked, and other than Bahrain, the very first race of the year, other than
mhm,
Bahrain, Russell has finished the race ahead of Lewis in every race.
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I don't
that's
know that he's qualified ahead in every race. I think there was one or two where he didn't, but most of those he even qualified ahead.
so what you're
So,
saying is other than the first time that Russell drove a Formula One car in a race for Mercedes. The first time Hamilton beat him, and that's the only time.
I didn't think of it in that way. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
amazing. When you put it in those terms,
Yeah. Oh,
it's
man.
yeah, I mean,
Ugh.
and then
Yeah.
you have Hamilton with all this additional experience, but with aging,
Reflexes or whatever, but yeah.
reflexes, and I just don't think he came into this season 100% mentally. I just don't think
Yeah.
he did after losing last year. I think he's still
Yeah.
out of it a little bit.
I mean, that's a reasonable excuse, and then you also have the situation of Mercedes. Now they're showing that they're better, but they're still not where they'd like to be, but up until now, the season has been so difficult for them where they're not just not close to where they wanna be, they were nowhere in the ballpark of where they wanted to be,
Well, I
and
take exception with them being better. They finished about like this all along. I mean,
I'm just speaking in the sense of mostly the Spanish Grand Prix. I think Toto Wolff after Spain was like, "Monaco's a terrible track for us. We're gonna do terribly." Now, maybe that was, a little bit of CYA, but
yeah, he
like,
said it would be a challenge, but yes,
yeah,
but I honestly, I think they're going to be third for.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I think they'll finish the year at third, unless one of the other teams gets a lot better all of a sudden, like McLaren.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Then
yeah,
they're going to be fighting for third and fourth. So, but as it is right now, there's no reason to think they're not solidly third because McLaren is only competitive with Lando.
yeah,
So that's the
yeah.
problem. Ricardo is just
He's let
not.
me check the standings right now. He's pretty much carrying the team on their back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez. Oh, this is bad. Okay, so McLaren has 59 points in total, 59 points, and
Okay.
Lando has 48 of them.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's just sad.
Ugh. Yeah, that's really bad.
Yeah.
But we've
Yeah.
talked about Ricardo plenty. Let's
Right.
let's not continue harping on too much about that. What do you think was another one of the kind of more standout uh performances
Well,
today? Because I
I
got a couple, but
I think Alonso did great.
he was annoying.
I think Russell did amazingly well.
He did. Russell
I
was
think he
fantastic.
was, he's so easy to overlook because
True.
and
Yeah.
I noticed that especially, like on the international feed, the
Oh
Sky
yeah.
Sports guys, they still think that Mercedes is Hamilton.
Yeah.
They
They
can't
hardly
get over the
mention Russell.
fact. Yeah, well, they hardly ever talk about it, but yet he's a fellow Brit. He's
Yeah.
just not Hamilton. They're having a hard time breaking up with this love
Yeah.
affair that they have for their fellow Brit, but it's like,
I mean,
what about
who could
Russell?
blame
Come on,
him?
guys.
Hammy's been like the
Yeah,
the top dog for ages, so like it's
yeah.
understandable.
But what's interesting is ostensibly they're driving the same platform, and
Yeah,
Russell is able to master it better than Hamilton. And
yeah,
that's a fact of life. And you could say
yeah,
the same thing that, like LeClerc he masters, generally speaking, the Ferrari better than Sainz does.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and so, yeah, and some drivers have to have a certain kind of car to drive it fast. And if it's not the way they like it, they just can't settle into it.
hmm,
And a good driver can drive anything. He
hmm,
can put a motor
yeah,
on anything and he'll find out how to be the fastest guy with a motor on that thing you just put it
yeah.
on.
I think
It,
that's where we
you know.
see Max Verstappen is like
Oh,
that.
absolutely.
This
Absolutely.
car handles and just behaves so differently from last year and the previous years, yet he's still able to drive the wheels off of it.
Yeah,
So
he's a racer.
yeah,
And he'll race anything and he knows how to do it. I'm
yeah,
not saying Hamilton isn't. I mean, he's
yeah.
extremely skilled, and
Well, we saw
but
that with him earlier in his career. I just wonder
yeah.
if maybe it is the age. I know he's only in his 30s, but it's late 30s, and in racing terms, that is pretty ancient. Yet, say that to Alonso. But
Yeah.
still, I don't know if it's age. I don't know if it's just headspace. I don't know what it is, but I think we should be
I
seeing.
would I'm the last guy to be an ageist, but
Yeah,
but I'm
yeah, yeah,
just saying,
boomer.
but there's some you have to bring in realities, that the young guys,
True.
number one, they have no fear, and where they should have some.
Yeah,
And then but they're also having, everything is fresh and keen and they're not worn out yet. This is what you see in
yeah,
baseball, There's only a few years where players are gonna give you I mean, position players are gonna give you their best years, and then their bodies simply wear out. It's amazing, even in baseball, how fast people's bodies wear out, in order to be super competitive with the rookies that are coming up. So,
Mhm.
but with Russell, he's extremely good at what he does. I think he's very intelligent. And the
Yeah.
other thing I like about him is his personality.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
This guy is rock solid, steady on.
Yeah.
And he just looks like the way he carries himself, the way nothing bothers him. He doesn't
Yeah.
get wound up about anything.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah, which
he's the
is
kind of
an
guy that
excellent trait for a
yeah,
driver.
you feel like, like a piece of space junk could fall next to him when he was on camera. He'd go, wow, look at that. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
that was weird, and then carry
Yeah.
on with his conversation, kind of laugh, and
Yeah.
where other people wouldn't do that, they'd freak out,
Yeah.
and it just nothing gets to him.
Yeah. That was one thing that I noticed last time out in Spain when he was doing the interviews and stuff, the post race interviews about getting third. He was just totally chill, totally
Yeah,
cool, and was like, yeah,
and unfortunately, for as good as he is, Lewis has a chip on his shoulder all the time, and he takes
yeah,
things personally that he shouldn't. It's like,
yeah,
somehow the universe is attacking him, because it just doesn't like him. Everything,
yeah,
everything is intentional, and he's just always looking for someone to do him wrong, and so he's that way, and he shouldn't be, but it's just the way he is, and I'm sure he has
yeah.
life experiences that contribute not only
Oh,
to
absolutely. I'm
his
sure.
drive
Yeah,
for success, but to things like that, taking
yeah,
things
yeah,
personally, but not trying to insult the guy. But I just think, overall, if you can get a guy, what you want is a driver as good as Russell with a demeanor like Russell's, because he's going to win
yeah,
championships. That guy's a future, he's
yeah.
definitely a future world champion. I have no question about it, and I can't say that necessarily for Perez at all, or for
No,
Sainz. Leclerc is, he should be
you
if he
know,
isn't.
that's a really good point. I think there is a substantive difference between drivers like Perez and Sainz, as good as they are.
Hmm.
There's a substantive difference between them and your Verstappens, your Leclercs, your Hamiltons, and probably even your Russells, honestly.
Yes, yes.
There is a difference there. Perez is loving this car. He won today in Monaco, which is
Hmm.
just amazing for him. Like he said, outside of your home race, Monaco is the one you want to win, and that's true. Monaco is like always, and so I am so happy for him, and
Oh
this is
yeah,
such a great moment. But
absolutely.
at the end of the day, he's not Max Verstappen. He's not going to put down a season. I mean, he could prove me wrong, and I would love to see it. So don't take this as some kind of hate on Perez because I love the
No,
guy,
yeah,
but he just isn't the kind of driver who is going to put out a season where he's winning every
right.
single race.
No, no,
So
and he is older. He's been around a while,
yeah,
as has Science, to be honest. So
yeah.
there's some issues like that too.
Well, Science is still younger. He's in his 20s still. Perez is 30 something and married and has kids and
Yeah, but
stuff.
he's
But
he's had several seasons. Science has. I mean, he's not
yeah,
a
yeah,
rookie by
yeah,
any means. Is what I'm getting at. Not as old as Ricardo, but he's been around a while, and there were expectations of him because of his dad too, with
yeah,
Science.
yeah. True. Yeah, Carlos is 27 and
Yeah, see that 27 is getting up there for Formula One.
yeah, I forget the year that he started racing in F1, but
He was probably pretty young,
it's
nine,
2015. 2015
19,
is when he
yeah,
started.
2015. So there you go,
So he would have been
15
20, I
season.
guess, is when he started.
So this is his
So
eighth season. That's a long career
something
for
like,
him.
yeah.
Yeah. So there you go.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not like this is third or fourth year.
No, no, yeah.
Anyway, so that's just the point. But I think
Yeah.
he did really well. He, like we said, could have won today. I
Yeah.
felt bad for Leclerc. He should have finished higher than he did, and he
Yeah.
got, by no fault of his own, he
Yeah.
wound up
Yeah.
in, where he did, in fourth place. But that's racing. That is racing. Racing is a mean mistress.
Yeah.
You just can't predict these things. You can't count
Yeah.
on the weather. You can't count on strategy. You can't count on somebody, whatever. It's just,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's why it's so exciting, because no matter what the stats say, racing is going to throw you a curve.
Yeah. All right, so enough about the top drivers. Let's look a little bit further down the
Hmm.
roster, and we've got Bottas again in the top 10 in ninth. coming in
Yes.
with more points for Alpha. And that's always great to see. But a few places behind him in 11th, Gasly, we saw some fantastic on track action from Gasly early on in the race. What did you think of that?
Oh, yeah. I thought it was awesome. He was the first guy to go to slicks, and he was,
Inters.
uh, I think he did no, he went to hard slicks before
Oh, maybe
anybody
he
else
did
did.
early.
Yeah, he did.
That might have
And
been Schumacher that went there first.
no, it was Gasly who went first, then Schumacher followed him,
Okay.
but I was paying attention to that, I believe.
Okay.
But,
But yeah,
I
he
mean, of
was on
course, I'm not.
inters and was passing guys left and right who were still on the wets and like just tearing
Yeah.
it up.
At first it was like he wasn't gaining time at first, which was
Right.
so that was what, that was kind of the big news was, okay, he's spinning more, the tires are crazy, the car's a handful, so he wasn't faster than Inters originally,
Right.
but it soon became way faster than Inters.
Yeah. Yeah. Once the
And then
track
he
dried
just
up a little
started
bit.
moving up through the pack. And then he had a turn of bad luck and that kind of thing during the race, but
Yeah, like what yesterday in qualifying, there was a red flag in Q1 that
mhm.
absolutely should not have been thrown. And it was like 2 minutes left, and like everyone was out on track trying to set a time. And then he just got the short end of the stick
You
in the
can't say it
queue.
shouldn't have. I mean, in Monaco, they throw red flags. They almost have to because the track's so narrow. They just it's understood that that's going to
It's
happen.
understandable that it was thrown because of how
Yeah,
Monaco is, but looking at it objectively, like I don't think you can claim that it should have been thrown because nothing happened. Like something could have happened, but nothing happened.
anyway, we won't argue that point.
Okay.
It is what it is. I mean, the
It is what it
FIA is
is.
going to throw a flag in Monaco if there's a car on the track. That's it. So,
Yeah.
you
Well,
know,
yeah, it is what it is. But at any rate, he was a victim of circumstance, and he was not able to get out of the pits early enough
yes.
when they resumed the session,
Yeah.
and so he just couldn't get to the line quick enough to set a time, and he just got eliminated in Q1. And he was setting in all of practice. He was setting really good times. He
Right.
always historically performs very well in Monaco, but
Yeah, he had a
yeah,
he had a bad race, and so, for the reasons like that, like because he was better than that, and if you remember in qualifying, the longer the day went on, the closer you got to the end, the warmer the track got, and the
yeah,
time started dropping. So but it's always a risk to
yeah,
not go out and put down a hot lap, put down a time,
yeah,
when it may not be the exact perfect time to do it, but to get it done.
yeah.
And if not, you especially at Monaco, you do take a chance of something like
Oh
that
yeah.
happening. So, yeah, that was unfortunate. But the point being that he did do really well in the race.
Hmm.
He just killed it. He had some bad luck in the race. For some reason, my mind's blank right now after watching that in Indy. But something
No,
went
he
on in the
finished
race.
11th.
Yeah, he did, but he was doing better, and then something happened that kind of knocked him back, and then he built his way back up again, I think.
Okay. I don't remember what that might have been, but
Yeah, it might have been. Yeah, I can't remember, but he did really well.
in a track like Monaco, starting 17th and then falling back because you pit on the first lap and
Yeah,
then recovering to 11th in
yeah.
Monaco, I think that's a solid
Oh,
race. I think that's
it's
a great.
yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
But I think Alpine did really well. I was
Yep.
glad to see it. Alonso was very strong, and
Alonso.
he was strong
Yeah.
in qualifying. He loves that track.
Yeah.
And see, he likes these fast tracks. He likes Jeddah. He likes Monaco. That's Fernando. He
Yeah.
loves these kind of tracks. So, and he does really well.
And
Um,
Ocon finished on the road in the top 10, but he was issued a
yes.
5-second penalty because of contact with Hamilton earlier in the race. So
Yeah.
his result was 12th, but
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
pace he was in the top 10. So that's pretty good.
And Hamilton did well to get himself back up through the
Yeah,
pack.
he
So
had a
it,
heck of a race. Like,
yeah, he did. He had it just everything's been hard for him so far this
yeah,
year, I'll tell you. And Russell just kind of cruises through.
yeah.
But there's one other team we have to talk about.
Uh,
Mid-pack
Williams.
Haas.
Oh,
Haas.
Haas. Oh, yeah, they both retired. They're the only two retirees. No, Albon
Yeah,
also retired late, but
but they didn't finish the race, either car. That's not
no.
good.
I wasn't I gotta be honest, I was actively watching the whole time, but for some reason, I just didn't notice that Magnussen retired. What happened
Yeah.
with him?
I was hoping you knew. I don't think it was covered, at least on the feed we were
Yeah,
watching. I
I
think
don't think
I
it
we both
was.
watched the international feed. Maybe we should watch alternate feeds, but
Uh,
when we see these, but I don't remember them saying why he was out. They probably just mentioned it in passing when I was getting another cup of coffee or something. But yeah, but Mick had a big shunt or a big crash, as we say, but big in the sense that it looked worse than it was. It was dramatic in the sense that he broke the back half of the car with the gearbox attached to it.
yeah, yeah.
Although I noticed the rear wing seemed undamaged, even though the that low last third of the car was sitting off by itself. The rear wing looked perfect to me, so kind of
Yeah, they
interesting.
they were saying that the cars these days are designed since Grosjean's crash, where
Uh
like
huh.
the whole gas tank and engine and everything ripped off the car. Since then, the cars are designed these days for like the gearbox and the rear axle and the whole back chunk of the car behind the engine is
Yeah,
more easily broken off just to
yeah. They're
absorb.
tethered,
Yeah,
but easier to break off. In other
yeah.
words, it's part of the crash structure, really.
Right, right. It's just to
And
absorb
yeah,
force that the driver doesn't have to take. And the
right.
way that that crash happened, he was spinning in that way where like most of the force hit the rear left wheel. So yeah, it's not
Yeah.
surprising that that broke off.
What was my one prediction about Indy this before it
Oh,
started?
we don't need to talk about that.
Oh, come on. At least one.
Yeah,
Can we
your prediction, you
please?
literally texted me right when we sat down to watch right when it
Indy.
was starting. You were like, "Look, Grosjean is going to crash and he's going to take someone with him."
I said that's my only prediction I'm making for Indy, that Grosjean's go.
Yeah.
If you've watched the Indy series this year, you know that
Yeah.
he's doesn't
Well, look,
hasn't
this
earned
is nothing
himself a
new with
good
Grosjean.
reputation. But yeah, we won't spend too much time there. But
No. I
Grosjean.
like personally, Grosjean as a person seems like an awesome dude, but
Yeah,
as a
yeah.
driver, he just crashes so much that
And as a
it's
driver,
just
he's kind of a jerk sometimes. But
yeah.
when he's with his wife and kids, he's a great guy.
Yeah. No,
But
he seems like
when
an
he's
absolutely
driving,
chill
he's
dude, but
kind of a jerk sometimes.
yeah.
To be honest. But
Yeah.
anyway, but
Anyway,
yeah,
not enough
but
about that.
I knew that he was going to go into the wall eventually, which he did.
Yeah,
I'm just
which he
glad,
did. Yeah,
and
he ended up
thankfully
doing that.
didn't take anybody out. So
Yeah.
and he was fine.
Yeah.
He was fine. He walked away. Which is good. But anyway, back to
All
this.
right.
So
Any other stories we want to cover?
it just that I think the one thing, especially for anyone who might be newer to Formula One, the one thing to pay attention to in this race, and it's worth going back to rewatch it, I think, is
Mm,
that this is a race. What makes Formula One thing, the reason I love rain races isn't just because the track's wet. It's because it brings a whole host of strategy
yeah.
into the day, into the race. Um,
Literally everything you had up until then just kind of goes out the window and you got to fly by the seat of your pants. And some guys are better at it than others.
Especially when it rains hard and then it doesn't
Yeah.
rain and then maybe rains again, which
Yeah.
sometimes happens.
Yeah.
So you have to decide. There's two wet tires, and they just have deeper grooves than the full wets, and narrower grooves, or not as deep. In other words, a
Shallower.
little faster, more similar to slicks in the intermediates. And then
Yeah.
slicks can't handle any water at all.
No. Yeah.
That's why they call them slicks. Well, they have no
Yeah.
tread, so they're
Yeah.
slick. And if you put any water, they're going to hydroplane.
Yep.
So, or aquaplane, as the Brits would say. But anyway, but and so there's always this strategy, like, when do you stop? When do you, like,
Yeah.
okay, gee, it's the track's drying out, but just off the racing line, it might be wet. So in the inters, the problem is those tires start to go away. They start shredding
Hmm.
if they're running on dry pavement.
Hmm.
So that's why you'll see guys on inters actually leaving the racing line and jumping into a puddle for a period of time to cool the tires down,
Yeah.
which is so weird in Formula One to see
Yeah.
people trying to cool their tires. But
Yeah.
that's why they have to do that if they're on, usually it's inters by the time that happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then sometimes it starts raining again. And so,
Yeah.
and like Sights, his strategy. So what I'm getting at is it brings in a whole bunch, it brings in more variables for strategy, which is what I think makes racing super interesting. Because as we saw today, Red Bull was able to maximize with some luck, but strategy,
Hmm.
and pull off a win in the race today with Perez.
Mhm.
And so that's only possible through strategy. So,
Yeah.
and racing simply brings in a whole host of variables, and it's not a typical race at that point.
Yeah.
It's you can't predict what's going to happen and is as easily, and it's just more interesting, which is why, like, I personally would love to see them bring back refueling for the same reason,
Yeah.
because
I
it
think
adds
that's a discussion in and of
so
itself,
that yeah, that's
but
a separate discussion. Maybe we'll
but
do
I
a separate
agree,
recording
honestly.
on that. Because it brings in so many more variables. It brings in so many more variables as far
Absolutely.
as, do you start the race with a full load of fuel? Do you start how much do you put in,
Yeah.
That kind of thing, and then how many times do we wanna stop for tires? So your
Yeah.
fuel load becomes everything.
Yeah.
And,
I was watching Indy today, and I was sitting there
mhm.
watching them refuel safely with 0 fires going, "Why
Yeah,
can't we do this in F1?"
and they do that every race all year long, and
Yeah.
you don't see
No
any
fires.
tragic stories about pit
Yeah.
fires. Yeah, you just don't see
For the
it.
most part. But yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, and if yeah, I mean, not to say it doesn't happen, but and even in Formula One, there's times where the guys would leave the pits or be a little flame, and they
Oh,
just
sure.
go
Yeah, yeah,
fast
yeah.
enough to put the flame out.
Yeah.
Honestly, they knew if they sat in the pits it'd burn, but once they get up to 150 miles an hour, it goes out. And
Yeah.
and that was part of learning how to drive when you're refueling back in those days. So
Yeah.
it's not that long ago. And Jean Todt, the old team principal for Ferrari when Michael Schumacher was there, and now he I don't know if he's retired, but I think as of
I think he works
le-
in the FIA or in the Formula 1 group, something
yeah,
like that.
he did. I know he was there last year, but even as recently as 2021, he was talking about bringing back refueling, and it just hasn't
Mm,
happened yet.
yeah.
So, because he
But
understands, and that but again, one reason I really like it is it adds yet another set of variables, which
yeah.
makes it more interesting
Yeah, yeah.
and something else for the teams to worry about that
Yeah.
makes us long term fans keeps us excited.
Yeah. But yeah, getting back to the whole conundrum around rain and the strategy around that, I think honestly, in my mind, there's no question that if it was a dry race, Leclerc wins easy,
Yep.
and probably Sainz second, and probably Perez third. That's just kind of how Monaco is,
Yeah.
and so
It is that way, barring anything unforeseen. You're absolutely right.
yeah. And then suddenly, when we get rain, we have the wildest Monaco I've ever seen. So,
I think this is the first time in like 8 or 9 years that the guy on pole did not win the race.
yeah, maybe.
So, yeah,
Well, no, technically speaking, last year that happened again because Leclerc got pole. He just couldn't make it to the grid.
well, yeah, but you know what I'm saying.
But
He didn't
but yeah,
start
yeah,
the
yeah,
race. He didn't
yeah.
start the race in the whoever starts in the number one position.
Right,
If
right,
you want
right.
to be very technical, but it for the last 8 or 9 years they win the race, which
Right.
just underscores the point of in a dry race this would have been much more predictable, especially if you have a teammate behind you to guard the other guys, keep them off your tail for a while.
Yeah.
It would have taken something, like a DNF, mechanical failure or a real screw up in the pits, like a wheel nut gets locked. But if you have a
Like
normal race,
Bottas last
you're
year.
gonna win. Yeah. And of course you have to be a skilled driver, not,
Yeah.
destroy your car on one of the, walls. But
That is the thing about Monaco is
mhm.
it is the most technical and attention demanding track on the calendar.
Yeah,
It's yeah, you lose concentration for a second and you're done.
that's a good segue to maybe what will be our final point. But
Yeah.
that being that apparently, the Principality of Monaco and the FIA have not come to terms. They had a contract that ran through 2022 to have the race
Yeah.
there in Monaco. They
There are
have not
disputes.
agreed on terms
Yeah.
beyond this year. And there's a chance that Monaco will not be in the calendar going forward.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't speak French, but
Yeah.
but I might send a card to the the government in Monaco saying you can't do this. You must come to terms with the FIA, and I'll tell the FIA quit being so FIA. I should agree with Monaco. My guess is what's happening is the race brings in a ton of money for Monaco with hotels and
Yeah.
expensive lattes and whatnot, but I would imagine the FIA is demanding that they build, like purpose-built facilities. And you're talking this tax haven European
Hmm.
principality where like a square inch of ground is probably worth like $500,000. So,
Yeah.
and they're wanting them to just you go build the purpose built facilities for us, and we will resign the contract. And it's like, no, they're like, no, we will not do
I
that.
know part
You
of
know,
the agreement, the disagreement is around the FIA wanting more money because I don't know if people know this, but a track pays the FIA in order to be on the calendar. The
yeah,
FIA doesn't pay the track. The track is like, we want to be on your calendar and here's a bunch of money.
right,
And so the FIA wanted more money out of Monaco. They were like, look, you are a historic track. You are like the most iconic race, but that doesn't excuse you from not paying the bill that everyone else has to pay,
right. And they
or
probably
more of
just
a bill
and
or whatever.
they're going to fight that and negotiate it
Yeah,
because they're a very small country, and now a
yeah,
very rich country.
yeah. But
But
it's not just money. Monaco also has their own marshals, their own TV crews,
yes,
their own, fire team, EMS team or
yeah,
whatever, and they pretty much insist on using their own people, which, fair enough. But that is a little bit of a disagreement between the FIA as well because they have their standards and their own people that they like to use. So it's not just money. It's
right, right.
probably mostly money, but it's not just money.
Hey, this
So
brings up my, it seems like, not all the time, but most of the time I have like a ridiculous or I have a useless fact. So guess
okay,
what my useless fact of today is?
okay. What's
Guess
that?
how many, you're right. There's a ton of marshals and they have their own marshals at Monaco and they do an amazingly good job.
Yeah.
And they do that because the track is, every inch of it is a potential disaster
Oh
area.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
but I happen to hear the number of marshals employed at
I heard
at
it too,
at
but I
this
don't
race.
remember.
It's over 700.
Wow.
Over 700 little Oompa Loompas in orange suits running around there.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, I'm not
It's
kidding. That
wild.
dude, for a track that's under 2 miles, like right
Yeah.
just about 2 miles, 3.2 kilometers or
Yeah.
whatever it is. It was to have 700 course marshals is
Yeah. But
amazing.
I mean, you said it. Literally every inch of that track is a place you can crash on. So like it
Yeah,
makes sense.
but they do it
But that
right.
is still wild.
And they weld, because these are actual streets. All the streets are normal streets that people
Yep.
drive on, and they have to
Yep.
weld all the, like the leaf grates on the curb,
Oh
where for
yeah, yeah.
where they drain water and the manhole covers for the sewer. They have to
Yeah.
weld all those shut, or the cars would suck them up off the ground because they have so
Oh
much
yeah, I didn't think
downforce.
about that.
Yeah, yeah, they actually have to do that. So they have to weld them, then they have to
Dang.
go back and unweld them.
Yeah.
And there's and they have, if you notice, no matter where a car
Wow.
goes off, they have a little crane that goes over and
Yep.
can pick the car up. They
Yep.
must have, I don't know the number. Maybe I'll do the research on that for next year. I'll figure out how many cranes they have. Now we know how many marshals they have. But the point is there's a huge expense and there's a lot of work. And then you got the FIA wanting more money out of them. And they're like, come on, guys. We're Monaco, and they're gonna put up a fight because it'd be horrible if we weren't there because of the history of it. But it is possible they could miss a year. And
Okay, so this is a Reddit post, so take it with a grain of salt, but they're
yeah,
saying that because Monaco is so tight, they have something like 23 or 24 cranes,
I wouldn't surprise me.
while other tracks get away with 8 to 12.
Yeah, that wouldn't
So,
surprise me at all. And for
yeah.
one of the smallest tracks with the largest number of cranes.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would not surprise me.
Yeah.
So,
So,
but anyway,
wild.
so I think that covers Monaco. It was a great
Yeah.
race. And again, I think if you got nothing to do this week, you should go back and you could fast forward through all the, the rain delays and all that. But basically just get to the race and watch the pit
Yeah.
strategies and understand how Red Bull got Perez in front of Ferrari and why LeClerc finished fourth. Yeah, and
Yeah.
you'll see that it all happened in the pits, and then you'll
Yep.
understand more about strategy.
Yep. Yep.
So
Yeah, so looking forward, I really hope that they're able to sort out their contracts because, like we've said plenty of times,
yeah,
I mean, honestly, Monaco runs the same day as the Indy 500, and in my opinion, that's for a reason. The Indy 500 has been running for 106 years this year.
yeah,
Monaco not quite as long, but it is as iconic of a race as the Indy 500, and I would absolutely hate to see it leave the calendar. That would
yeah.
be the worst thing to me.
and if it did, it would come back. They would
It would have
eventually.
to. Yeah.
But Formula One, I mean, there's been movies made about Formula
Oh,
One
yeah.
racing at with the casino, the Monte Carlo
Some of
casino.
the most iconic moments in F1 history happened in Monaco. I mean,
Oh yeah.
Senna. I mean, there was several different rain races where Senna was just like a god and
Well,
just.
Senna, didn't he win? Doesn't he have one of the large? He won like 4 or 5 times there. He was like
I think it's 6.
he owned Monaco,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is interesting. But
Yeah.
that was some guys just love that track and they do
Mhm.
so well there. And I think like Fernando's one of those guys. And other
Yeah.
guys just they get through it, but they don't like
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
But and some guys won their only Formula One race, or one of the very few they've won at Monaco.
Yeah.
It's just there's some weird things go on there. But you see that, and they run this year is the second year I think they ran historic cars in Monaco in the weeks leading up to
Yeah, I saw
the
that.
Grand Prix. And they've got cars from the 50s and 60s, then cars from the 70s, cars from the 80s, and
Yeah.
that's on YouTube. If you put
Yeah,
in
it is
like
so cool to see.
historic Monaco
Yeah.
2022, you'll see some. You can pick your era, whether you want to
Yeah.
see the cars from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, whatever. And it's great stuff to
Yeah.
watch. It's to see these old cars that you're used to seeing in grainy 80s footage,
Yeah.
like the type of cars that Prost and Senna were running back in the
Yeah.
day. To see those again in crisp, live color, in Monaco, it's a treat. It's an
Oh,
honest
yeah.
treat, and they have really good drivers. They get these good drivers out of retirement to come in and run them,
Yeah.
and for the most part, not damage them. Let's hope.
Yeah.
But
Well,
it's
that's happened a couple of times. There was one
oh,
of
it does,
the
it does.
green, I wanna say it was from the '50s F1 cars that just, like, caught a massive amount of understeer and just plowed straight into a wall. You're just like, "No."
Yeah, and you see sponsors that, today's politically correct
Like
environment
Marlboro
doesn't
or
allow,
whatever.
but you'll see like John Player was
Yeah.
European Cigarettes and Marlboro. You'll see different sponsors that you go, "Oh, yeah, I remember that,"
Yeah, yeah,
and it's really cool, but
yeah.
anyway.
Alright, anything else before we go ahead and wrap up?
No, I think it was a very exciting race. It was not
Yeah.
boring. I mean, there was a little boring period there toward the end,
A little bit,
where
yeah.
they kind of got dialed in. The track was dry. It wasn't going to rain, and they were 1, 2, 3, 4. The action was in the back of the pack, but for the
Yeah.
most part, up until that moment in time, this was an action-packed race. It was a great Monaco.
Yeah, the closing, like, 8 or 10 laps, like, they were, like, within 3 seconds of each other, like,
Yeah,
2 to 3 seconds, the front 4. It was pretty wild, but
if anybody had made a mistake, it would have changed things drastically.
absolutely.
And
Yeah.
nobody did, which
Nobody
was
did.
amazing, which
Yeah.
kept you on the edge of your seat, but it was kind of a procession at the front, for those last laps. But it
Yeah.
was still exciting because anything can happen.
Yeah.
I just can't believe how close those guys go to those barriers and the
I
speeds there.
know. Some of those slow-mo
So
shots where they're literally brushing it, like, their tire makes contact.
I would say we had a pretty good Monaco experience.
Yeah.
So in
Absolutely.
2022, yeah, so where are we going next?
We are going to Azerbaijan, which, if you remember from last year,
Yeah.
is the track where, Verstappen was easily out front leading when he had a tire blowout.
Oh
We're,
yeah.
like, really close to the end. Stroll had the same thing happen, and then Perez
Oh yeah.
was on, pole, I think, for the standing restart, but Hamilton got just an incredible launch, but had the brake bias switch on accidentally
Oh, right.
and overheated his front tires and had no stopping power and fell all the way to the back of the grid, and Perez won. That was his first win,
That was
or
funny.
second win
Yeah.
ever, first for Red Bull,
Yes.
but yeah.
Yeah, I
So
remember that.
it's another street circuit, but it is, usually decent racing because they actually have, like, proper DRS zones because it was designed with DRS in mind,
Oh,
so.
oh, 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 we forgot to mention DRS at Monaco.
Oh, yeah, it, like, never happened throughout the whole race, and everything was fine.
Well, they did turn it on eventually, and it did help. It did help people
Yeah,
pass, but
not that much.
well, it gave some guys some advantage. But yeah, Monaco's very hard to pass on. But
Yeah,
anyway, DRS.
yeah.
We're just gonna quit talking about DRS. The cars can follow closer this year.
Yeah, I think the consensus at this point is that the cars can follow a lot closer, but they still can't pass without DRS. Now,
Right.
granted, The following closer gives more opportunities to pass with DRS, but they still need the DRS. So it's kind of is what it is, and we'll revisit it later in the season.
Well, in theory, except it hasn't turned out that way, but that was the theory.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, and we
So
need to
well,
apologize. We did do a recording for Spain, but we had a technical
yes.
error.
So what happened with that recording, huh?
We had a technical error. We being me.
Yeah,
I had not kept an eye on my disk space, and my program that I record on uh, had it threw up and lost my file. So
yeah,
we didn't have time to we didn't have time to re-record. If we had 2 weeks until this race, we would have,
yeah,
but
yeah,
we didn't, and we each had other commitments. So
yeah.
we missed. We did do the recording, and it was one of our better ones, I must say.
It was it
I,
was our
I
best episode yet. So and
yeah,
it's gone. It's just
lost forever.
the episode that never was, the cursed
But you never
episode.
know.
But
You never know. There may be pieces of it somewhere that'll come out.
yeah, somewhere in the ether. But yeah, it was weird. Your program, instead of just being like, "Hey, you don't have disk space, clear up some disk space, and then try to save it again," it was just like, yeah, I'm just
Yeah,
gonna close now and just dump everything. So later, it was
yeah,
just so weird.
exactly.
Anyway, all right.
All right. Is Azerbaijan a racetrack or a country?
Azerbaijan is a country, and the
It
track,
is a country,
yeah, the
not a city.
the Baku city
Hmm.
is the
Oh,
city.
Baku is the track. Yes,
Baku,
okay.
Baku in Azerbaijan.
I can honestly say I met a lot of people in my life, but never an Azerbaijani.
Yeah,
So
yeah. It's a country. If I mean, I'm probably gonna be wildly wrong on my geography, but it's somewhere like East Europe, but like almost like Turkey, almost, but like that kind of
yeah,
neighborhood. But yeah,
yes, I know what you like Romania, and then
yeah, somewhere over
kind of in
there.
the Baltic area. Okay,
Yeah,
well there's a homework lesson for everyone who's listening. Go look where Azerbaijan is, so you know where
yeah.
it is.
And and let me know if I'm wrong because I
And
probably
there
am.
will be a test. We'll ask you all next week.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's going to do it for us for today. Thanks so much for tuning in. It is a bye week between now and Azerbaijan. So we will have an
Yes.
as yet to be determined topic for the bye week. But until then, thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time and take care of yourselves.